Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Curiosity Corner Live. My name is Jared, your friendly science Viking, and I'm a guest engagement specialist at the Great Lakes Science Center. Now, obviously, the center is still closed because of everything that's going on, but we didn't want you to miss out on the chance to learn about science. So, with that in mind, today we're going to talk about non-Newtonian fluids. I know, there's a lot of words all smushed together, but don't worry, I'll explain. So, we've talked about Isaac Newton in the past. He liked science, he liked learning about things. He created the laws of motion, but he also did a lot of work with fluids. It was his work that led to viscosity. Now, you might remember viscosity from my buddy Matt telling you about it a while back, but here's a refresher. So viscosity is how, in basic terms, is how thick or thin a liquid is. I know I got jammed up there, but okay, moving on. For example, water is very low viscosity. It isn't very thick. It just jumbles around. Alternatively, ketchup, our non-trademark ketchup here, has very high viscosity. It's very thick. It barely counts as a liquid. It's much closer to a solid in its current form. So a Newtonian fluid is a fluid that changes its that doesn't change its consistency. It does not change its viscosity based on outside pressures. If I shake this, if I rattle it, if I throw it across the room, well, the flask would break, so we're not going to do that. But my water is staying water. It's not changing, it's not thickening, nothing. Staying just as fluid as it was when we started. Our ketchup, on the other hand, our ketchup is a non-Newtonian fluid. That means it is a fluid that's going to change its viscosity, change its consistency based on outside pressure. For example, right now, as we watch it, as it moves around, it's very slow. You see it moving very sluggish. It's more like goo at this point. But if we shake it, if we add a little energy into our ketchup, suddenly it moves much quicker. It's much closer to being a liquid now than it was just a few seconds ago. So we added an outside pressure, we added in some energy, and now our ketchup has much less viscosity. It's much runnier now. So, that's what a non-Newtonian fluid is. But I have one more example of a non-Newtonian fluid. Oh, this is going to be so weird. I made this earlier. Here, let's go show you. I made this little pile of goop here. I made this earlier. Now, I know you may be wondering, Science Viking, what in the world, there we go, are you doing with a pile of goop? Well, I'm glad you asked, hypothetical other half of this conversation. We are going to make it into a solid. How? Whew. Just watch. So, right now, as we look, it looks very liquidy, right? Looks like a liquid. It moves around, does stuff. But the second you touch it, the second you add some energy into it, suddenly it's much more solid. Look at this. Whee. I made this little mixture out of cornstarch and water. That won't be important for you to remember later. And the more you manipulate it, the more solid it becomes. And the more you accidentally fling it across the room. But if you leave it alone, if I stop manipulating it, it transforms, its viscosity changes to going right back to being a liquid. Oh, this is so gross. Remind me to complain to whoever I let talk me into this. Anyway, moving on. The good news is that our oobleck, that's its official name, it comes from an 1800s children's story. Anyway, the good news is our little goop here is completely safe. It's easy for you to use, for you to manipulate, and it washes off really easy. Just run some warm water, it'll come right off. Why am I mentioning this? Well, because our design challenge for today is to make your own goop. All you need to do that is cornstarch, some water, And just to give it a little color, I put in some food coloring. Yes, I put in red food coloring. You should not be surprised by this at this point. Anyway, what's important? Oh, this is so weird. Sorry, I'll stop flipping out about that. Moving on. What's important to remember is that however much cornstarch you use, for example, if you use half a cup of cornstarch, you have to use half as much water. For example, a quarter of a cup then. So if you use a full cup of cornstarch, like I did, which, by the way, way too much, you have to use half as much, so half a cup of water. Now, if you don't get the formula right on the first try, don't worry. I didn't. It took me about 5 minutes to get my goop to be this consistency, which I'm still not sure is actually correct, but I think it's okay. What do you think? Now, I know this looks like cake batter, and you'll be tempted to eat it. Don't eat it. I don't think it's bad for you, but still, don't eat the science. It's all over my hands now. Anyway, so make your goop. It's called oobleck. It's not called goop. I should probably stop calling it that, but it feels really goopy. Moving on. And then post it online. Tag us with the hashtag StayCuriousCLE, because I want to see if all of you are as grossed out by this as I am. Probably not, but I can dream. Anyway, that's our show for today. Thank you so much for joining me. Make sure you like these videos, subscribe to our channel, watch all of our videos, learn about science. Join me again at 3 o'clock today, as I'll talk a little bit more about non-Newtonian fluids and even show you something you can actually do with this fun stuff. So, it's all over my hands. Oh my goodness. Anyway, so until then, have fun, be safe, and as always, stay curious.